In 1968, a Soviet submarine vanished in the Pacific. The Soviet Navy searched for it for weeks and found nothing. The United States located the wreck from a listening post on the coast of California, thousands of miles away, by the sound it made when it died. A lost Soviet submarine found by the Americans before the Soviets who lost it. And that points to the secret most people miss about American sea power. It was never really about the submarines. Around 1950, the United States began turning the floor of the ocean itself into a listening device, and it has never switched it off. You think America rules the seas with carriers and stealth jets. The deeper answer is straight down, in the dark. But here's what's changed. China is now building submarines faster than America can. And it has started building something else too, in the one stretch of ocean where a war would actually be fought. So by the end of this, you'll have a straight answer to a hard question. Is China simply building more submarines? Or is it quietly taking apart the advantage America spent 70 years constructing? This is future war tech. We're going down to find out. Chapter 1. The Silence. Begin with the thing that makes a submarine. Not the missiles, not the reactor. The fact that no one knows it's there. A modern American attack boat, the Virginia class, doesn't try to be perfectly invisible. That's not how this works. What it does is far more useful. It stays quiet enough for long enough that it detects the other side before the other side detects it. Down here, that delay is everything. The boat that hears first gets to choose. It can line up a shot, or slip away, or simply watch, while the other crew sails on, death, certain they're alone. The boat that hears second usually never finds out it lost. So, how do you make 7,800 tons of steel disappear into the sound of the sea? You wage a quiet war on your own noise, one source at a time. Go inside the hull. Every pump and turbine that could betray the boat is bolted not to the frame, but onto a floating cradle, an isolation raft, so its vibration dies in springs and rubber before it can reach the steel skin and leak into the water. The outside of the hull is sheathed in anechoic tiles, a rubbery coating that absorbs an enemy's sonar ping instead of bouncing a clean echo back. And the propeller, historically the loudest thing on any submarine, spinning fast enough to boil the water into collapsing bubbles that scream for miles, has been swallowed on the newest boats by a shrouded pump jet, turning quietly inside a housing where the water can't tear at it. The result is a number that still sounds impossible. A modern Virginia-class boat running at full speed is quieter than the submarines America built a generation ago were when they were barely creeping along, doing everything in their power to stay silent. The fast boat of today outhides the sneaking boat of the past, and America still isn't done. The newest Virginia boats now carry what the Navy bluntly calls an acoustic superiority package, another layer of quieting, and a large new sonar array down the flank of the hull. The phrase tells you the whole mindset. Not parity, not quiet enough. A standing demand that the other side never gets to be as quiet as you are. But here's the limit of all that silence, and it matters for everything that comes later. Being quiet only stops the enemy from hearing you. It does nothing to help you hear him. And in the deep, hearing is the whole war. So, in 1950, America made a second bet, the opposite bet. Instead of just hiding better, it decided to listen to the entire ocean at once. Chapter 2. The Ear. On land and in the air, America rules by seeing. Radar, satellites, all of it racing at the speed of light. Push below the surface, and that advantage dies. Saltwater kills radar in a few feet and blinds every satellite ever launched. Down here, there is one thing that carries: sound. So America didn't build a sharper eye, it built an ear the size of an ocean. They called it SOSUS, the Sound Surveillance System. Starting in the 1950s, the Navy laid hydrophones, underwater microphones, along the seabed of the Atlantic and Pacific, wired back to shore. They transmitted nothing, no pulse, no beam, nothing to detect. A passive sensor gives off no signal an enemy can find or jam in the way you jam a radar. It just sits in the dark and listens. And the geography did half the work. Look at the North Atlantic. Any Soviet submarine leaving the big northern bases on the Kola Peninsula and heading for the open ocean had to pass through one narrow stretch of water, the gap between Greenland, Iceland, and the United Kingdom. The Navy seeded that gap with sensors and turned it into a tripwire. Soviet boats would slip out of their bases thinking they'd vanished into the deep, cross that line, and American analysts on shore would already be tracking them, naming them, plotting their course, like watching trains pull through a station. For years, the Soviets couldn't work out how their submarines kept getting shadowed the moment they left home. The answer was lying on the seabed the entire time. Now the moment that proves what this thing could do. March 1968, a Soviet ballistic missile submarine, K-129, is on patrol in the Pacific. Then she simply stops. No signal, no wreckage, nothing. Moscow pours ships and aircraft into a search and combs the sea for weeks, looking for their own boat in their own patrol box with everything they have. They never find it. Half a world away, American analysts pull the SOSUS recordings and hunt backward through the noise. And there it is, captured by widely separated listening stations, one near Point Sur on the California coast, another out on Adak in the Aleutians. A single sharp event. Not the boom of an explosion, the crunch of an implosion, the unmistakable sound of a hull caving in under the pressure of the deep. Here's the part to hold on to, because it's the whole power of the system in one move. From a single station, you get a direction, a line out into the ocean. From a second station far away, you get another line. Where those two lines cross is your submarine. By crossing the bearings from stations thousands of miles apart, American intelligence narrowed the wreck of K-129 down to a small patch of open Pacific on a seabed more than 16,000 feet down. So the Soviet Union lost its own submarine and couldn't find it with a fleet, and the United States found it from the California coast by listening to it die and drawing two lines on a map. That is the difference between sailing the ocean and hearing all of it. SOSUS grew up. It absorbed new sensors and surface ships towing sonar arrays and shore processing stations and got a new name, the Integrated Undersea Surveillance System. For 70 years, through every administration, it has never stopped working. America stopped treating each enemy submarine as a thing to find in a single lucky encounter and started treating the whole ocean as one continuous tracking problem. And once a country can listen that well, in water no one thinks it can reach, it stops asking, "Can we find them?" and starts asking a far more dangerous question. We're already down here unseen. What else can we do? The answer is one of the boldest operations of the Cold War, and almost no one knows it happened. Chapter 3. The Heist. Find the Sea of Okhotsk, tucked against Russia's far eastern coast, half ringed by Soviet territory, the Kamchatka Peninsula curling around its eastern edge. For all practical purposes, it was a Soviet lake. They patrolled it, they claimed it, and running across its floor was a single cable carrying the secrets of the Soviet Pacific submarine fleet from its base on Kamchatka back to the mainland. The Americans decided to listen to it, stack up what should have made that impossible. The cable lay under hundreds of feet of freezing water, inside the territorial sea of a nuclear superpower, patrolled on the surface and watched from below. To tap it, you'd have to slip a submarine in undetected, find one cable on a vast, dark seabed, and attach a device to it, without a soul on the surface ever knowing. In the autumn of 1971, a specially modified submarine, the USS Halibut, did exactly that. She crept across the boundary, hugged the bottom, and when she found her spot, divers locked out of a chamber in her hull into water around 400 feet deep, a brutal depth for a human being to work, in the cold and the black, the lights of their own boat the only thing between them and nothing. On the seabed, they found the cable, and here's the clever part, they didn't cut it. They wrapped a recording device, a cylinder roughly 20 feet long, around the cable like a hand closing loosely over a wire. It worked by induction. It read the faint electrical signal leaking off the line without ever touching the wire inside. If the Soviets ever hauled the cable up to repair it, the device was built to slip off and settle into the mud, leaving nothing behind. Then comes the detail that turns clever into staggering. The Soviets were so certain that this cable, in their own sea, was beyond anyone's reach, that much of what ran through it wasn't even encrypted. They sent it in the clear. For roughly a decade, American intelligence sat on the floor of a Soviet sea and listened to Soviet fleet communications in plain language. It didn't end because the Soviets outthought it. It ended because an American intelligence analyst, deep in debt, sold the secret to Moscow. Only then did Soviet ships appear over that exact patch of empty water, and the device disappear. And the audacity didn't stop at listening. Remember K-129 on the floor of the Pacific? America went back for the body. Under a cover story about a billionaire mining metal nodules from the deep seabed, the CIA built a one-of-a-kind ship and reached down more than 3 miles of black water to lift a piece of a sunken Soviet submarine off the bottom. Part of it came up. Much of what they were after did not. The section they wanted most reportedly broke apart on the way up. But they had proven something no other nation could even attempt, that America could reach the unreachable, and that nothing on the ocean floor was truly out of its hands. This is the side of American sea power no parade shows you. Not the silence, not even the listening. The nerve to go into the other side's water, in the dark, and walk out with his secrets. For 40 years, no one came close to any of it. And then a challenger began climbing out of the dark. One that had studied every move America ever made down here, and decided not to copy it head-on, but to change the question entirely. Chapter 4. The Challenge. Here's where this owes you honesty. If the only thing you ever hear is that America can't be beaten, you're not getting analysis, you're getting a recruiting ad. So let's do the real thing. Undersea power was never a submarine count. It's 5 things stacked on top of each other. How quiet your boats are, how well you can hear the other guy, what your torpedoes and missiles can do, how many of your boats are actually ready to fight on any given day, and how fast you can build more. Stealth, detection, weapons, availability, and the shipyard. Walk through all 5 honestly, and you get the real answer. Start with the number you've probably heard thrown around, that China now has more submarines than the US Navy. It's true, and it's misleading, and the difference matters. Counting every attack boat by hull, including diesel-electric submarines, China already fields more than the United States. But in nuclear-powered attack submarines, boats that can run submerged for months and cross oceans without surfacing, it isn't close. America operates somewhere around 47 of them. China, by most estimates, has roughly 6. On the high-end measure, the gap is enormous, and it's American. But notice the trap in that comfort, because it's the heart of the whole story. America's nuclear boats are built to roam the entire planet. China doesn't need to roam the planet. It needs to win in one place, the shallow, crowded seas inside the first island chain. The Taiwan Strait, the South China Sea, the Luzon Strait between Taiwan and the Philippines. And those waters are exactly where America's advantage gets weakest. Here's why. And it's physics, not politics. America's whole edge, the silence of its boats, the 70-year ear on the seafloor, was built for the deep, quiet, open ocean, where a faint sound carries for miles and a single hydrophone can pick a submarine out of the dark. The seas around China are the opposite. They're shallow, they're crowded with ships, churning with biological noise, broken up by river runoff and temperature layers. Sound gets lost in there. The deep water ear that found a Soviet wreck from California goes half-deaf in the racket of a continental shelf. And those noisy shallows are perfect for exactly the kind of submarine China builds most. Diesel-electric boats, the Yuan class, dozens of them, many now running on air-independent propulsion that lets them sit silent on batteries for weeks without surfacing. In the open ocean, a diesel boat is a liability. It has to come up for air and gets caught. In a shallow strait, sitting quiet in the noise, waiting beside a choke point with mines and anti-ship missiles, it may be the single hardest thing in naval warfare to find. China doesn't have to own the deep. It only has to make the water near its own coast too dangerous for anyone else to enter. Deny the sea, don't rule it. And the numbers in that specific water tell the real story. America's roughly 47 nuclear attack boats are spread across the entire globe: the Atlantic, the Mediterranean, the Arctic, the Pacific. At any given moment, only a handful are on station in the Western Pacific. By one Navy estimate, a regional peak of around a dozen American attack boats, against roughly 20 Chinese diesel submarines operating in the South China Sea, in their own backyard, close to home. Globally, America wins. In the one sea that would decide a war over Taiwan, it's a contest. Now the part that should genuinely worry an American planner, because it isn't about China's submarines at all, it's about America's. Building a nuclear submarine is brutally hard, and the American industrial base is straining. Virginia-class boats are running 24 to 36 months behind schedule, and their price has climbed more than 20% in 5 years. The yards are delivering only a little more than 1 new boat a year, against a goal of 2. Older Los Angeles-class boats are retiring faster than new ones arrive. And on the current path, the American attack submarine fleet doesn't grow this decade. It shrinks, bottoming out at around 46 boats in 2030. The Navy's own stated requirement is 66 attack submarines. It won't reach that number until the mid-2050s. It gets worse close up. Through recent years, a punishing share of the attack fleet has been stuck pierside in maintenance instead of at sea. At one point, around 37% of the force, more than a third, tied up in overhaul or sitting idle, waiting for a slot. A submarine in a maintenance backlog is a submarine that doesn't exist on the day you need it. Meanwhile, China's commander-facing American admiral has put it plainly. China is launching boats at a pace of roughly 2 for every 1.5 the United States manages to deliver. The Chinese fleet, more than 60 submarines today, is projected to reach 80 by 2035, and China is now copying the one advantage that was supposed to be America's alone: the ear. For years, Chinese state industry has been building what's openly compared to SOSUS, an underwater Great Wall of seabed sensors, hydrophone arrays, and fiber optic cables across the South China Sea and along the first island chain, fused by AI, anchored near its submarine base on Hainan Island. A senior American admiral has testified that China is deliberately working to narrow America's stealth margin through quieter boats, more anti-submarine forces, and exactly this kind of seabed listening grid. The deep ocean still belongs to America's ear. The shallow water near China increasingly has an ear of its own. There's one more shadow over all of it, and honesty means flagging it as a risk, not a fact. American officials have warned they expect Russia, broke, isolated, and leaning on Beijing, to hand China the submarine quieting know-how it spent half a century perfecting. That hasn't been confirmed as a done deal, but if it happens, the last clear gap, the silence gap, could close not over generations, but over years. So put yourself in that planner's chair. You still own the quietest boats and the oldest, deepest ear on Earth. But the war you're preparing for wouldn't be fought in the deep ocean where you're unbeatable. It would be fought in shallow, noisy, sensor-seeded water close to China, against more boats than you can put there, built by yards faster than yours, while a third of your fleet sits in overhaul. So, do you still own the deep? That depends entirely on which ocean you mean. Chapter 5. The Verdict. Take the 5 layers and lay them down honestly, because the honest version is sharper than the cheer. Stealth. America still leads. Its boats are the quietest on Earth. But China's newest nuclear boat, the Type 095, is judged by some assessments to approach the quieting of an older Virginia, and Russia's frontline boats are already acoustically competitive. The lead is real, and it's narrowing. The ear. In the open ocean, America's lead is overwhelming and 70 years deep, and no rival has built anything like it across the Atlantic and the Pacific. In the shallow seas off China, that lead is fading, degraded by the noise of the littoral and increasingly answered by China's own seabed sensors in those exact waters. Weapons. America leads cleanly. Its torpedoes and its cruise missile-laden attack boats outrange and outgun anything China can put to sea. Readiness and experience. This is America's most human advantage and its most fragile. No Navy on Earth has anything like the accumulated experience of the American submarine force. Generations of crews who have actually done this in the enemy's water under real pressure. But experience doesn't help when the boat is in a maintenance dock. The availability problem is real, and it cuts straight into the lead. And the shipyard. Here China is ahead, and it isn't close. It builds faster. It's still growing while America troughs. And in a long war, a war of losses where boats get sunk and have to be replaced, the side that can build is the side that can last. So now the verdict. The real one. America still holds the strongest undersea advantage in the world. In the deep, open ocean, it owns the water as completely as it did during the Cold War. The silence, the ear, the experience all still hold. But it no longer enjoys what it had after the Soviet collapse, an uncontested ocean. The advantage is now sharply uneven. It is total where the water is deep and quiet and far from China, and it is genuinely contested in the shallow, crowded seas where a war over Taiwan would actually be fought. That's the uncomfortable shape of it. America may own the deep, and the deep may not be where the next war is. You can see it in one comparison. America can take a submarine that's over 40 years old and send it on a deployment that circles the globe, running for the better part of 2 years, carrying more than 100 cruise missiles ready to strike the day it arrives. Few navies on Earth could sustain anything close to that reach, that payload, across that many oceans. That's what experience and nuclear power buy you. But all of it is built for the wide open world. China isn't trying to match it across the wide open world. China is trying to make one sea, close to home, impossible to enter. And for that, it doesn't need a boat that can circle the globe. It needs 40 quiet diesels, a seabed full of sensors, and shipyards that never stop. America is also pulling its friends into the water. Under the AUKUS Pact, the United States, Britain, and Australia are steadily knitting together their submarine training, their bases, their technology, and their intelligence, building toward an allied undersea presence that stretches from the North Atlantic to the edge of the South China Sea. It's a real edge and a slow one to build, and China, for all its hulls, has nothing like it. No allies with submarines, no oceans full of friendly ports. The most honest summary anyone in Washington has offered came from Admiral Jonathan Greenert, the Chief of Naval Operations, the Navy's top officer, in a memo back in 2013. The undersea, he wrote, is the one domain in which the United States has clear maritime superiority. Most people quote him there and stop. They shouldn't, because he didn't stop. He added a warning that this superiority would not go unchallenged. He wrote that more than a decade ago. Both halves have aged into truth. America found a lost submarine from across an ocean, tapped a cable in the enemy's own sea, and turned the seabed into an ear no one else could match. It won the deep, decisively, in silence. And now, for the first time in 3 generations, a rival is changing the board. Not by winning the deep, but by deciding the war somewhere else, in water where America's great advantages count for less. The lead beneath the sea was never built in a crisis. It was built in the 70 quiet years before one. The only question left is whether America still has the will and the shipyards to keep it, before the silence it has owned for a lifetime finally has company. This is Future War Tech.